Okay, so we're going over a gait analysis today, and this athlete has had a history of right knee pain, and as that's been clearing up, we're kind of just trying to make sure that we stay ahead of things. And this is kind of more of a prophylactic gait analysis at the runner's request, and sometimes I'm a little abhorrent to changing things in gait, especially when things are going the positive direction. But if we see something glaringly obvious, we want to look at that and kind of get ahead of it. So the video on the viewer's left, if we can draw here, is the beginning. Viewer's right is after. So let's go ahead and we're just going to play these side by side. And I'm going to kind of point out what I look for. So something that's very popular to look for is where does my foot land? And when we say where, the things that get looked at are, is it my heel? Is it my forefoot? And if we're looking at this runner's left foot, what we want to take into account is that, it's a little bit of a heel strike impact, right? But the biggest thing here is that we look at this angle off of his center of gravity. So if we kind of go through his trochanter, and obviously we're just using landmarks on a video, see about 11 degrees. We want to see that angle somewhere around 5 degrees. So if that was the case, you can imagine the foot is going to be somewhere hitting the treadmill there. So I don't really care where the foot lands in terms of heel, midfoot, forefoot, full foot landing, because all research shows when I run over a certain pace, which is around 6 minutes and 32 seconds, that it's actually more efficient to be a heel striker just based on using all three rockers of the ankle versus just the second and first rocker. So let's clear that out, and then we're going to move over to the after video. And if we look at impact on that left foot again, we're going to see we get what's called a full foot landing. So even if we go before impact, you're going to see full foot. So this is what you're going to see in most Olympic marathoners, where we're not out on the heel, we're actually not up on the toe, because this is going to maximize ankle dorsiflexion moment. It's going to use all the intrinsic musculature of the foot versus kind of using more of that first rocker, which is sprinter. So running on your toes is not necessarily the most efficient thing, especially if I'm an endurance athlete. And then it's also going to push him back into a little bit better center of gravity versus where we started. So not vastly different, but it's just enough, because we know one of the biggest things we can do to reduce injuries in runners is reduce impact, and a good way to do that is either up cadence or give a cue such as we did. So how did we get this change to occur? Super simple cue, and that cue was, I want you to feel like you're kind of pulling the treadmill back, mainly with this left foot. And then if we look at what's called the angle of return, we're going to break these apart and speed this one up and get it right in our angle of return. So if we go left, now we can see how drastic this difference is here. So if we draw this angle from, again, trochanter through the knee, through the lateral malleolus, and then we do the same thing over here, really easy to see even without drawing that we have a more acute angle on the right or the after. So what this does, it creates a shorter lever, so there's less work for my hip flexor to do as I pull back, coming back from that position. So there's less work being done by the hip flexor, more springiness or more eccentric load occurring coming off the push into the ground. We have a short lever of return here, which creates less work over time, just like we want to reduce the ounces in our shoes. We don't want a super long lever that I'm dragging back each time. But the goal is that we're actually using more hamstring to propulse forward. And all these things kind of shift a lot of things. So one simple cue got us what? It got us a full foot landing, changed our center of gravity landing. It gave us a shorter angle of return, more push out of the hamstring, and we're not like drastically changing this runner's gait. We're just giving one simple cue. Now, the caveat here is we got to be really careful with if we start feeling that my calf gets blown up, because what you'll see some people do when we push them here is they hit a new end range of dorsiflexion and they say, man, my calf gets sore, as long as we see that they're getting this full foot landing, right, and we're not actually staying up on our toes, we should be in the safety realm. And then it just comes down to creating accommodation and durability there. One other interesting side note as we play these through is we're getting a little less swing of that right elbow. And it's not drastically different here, but as I push further off that left side, I'm going to drive that right elbow further back. And you can see if we pause this runner here, we're a little kyphotic as we go through here. So, right, a little rounded. We like to see that we can get a little bit better thoracic spine extension rotation, which is going to help the whole game here. But that's kind of a typical rundown of what I'm looking for. And again, this is just one issue. We try to have the least amount of cues or no cues possible to get somebody to do the things that we think would just benefit them. And sometimes that means no change at all.